Hi, I'm Heather, and I'm going to start by taking 3 deep breaths and just arriving here first. Okay, so I long ago realized that I really needed to kind of refresh my own memory on what my skill set is, because I seem to have somehow kind of, I don't know, forgotten it. And I'm unclear on what I actually have been well trained in, because it's been quite a while since I've been in a regular work environment. And I have had zero interest in applying for jobs. So I just haven't really thought about this stuff in a while. But it's time to start putting some of these skills to work. And I do have a plan of creating essentially a staffing agency um, for really small businesses who really only need like a handful of hours of support a week. Um, and I do have a particularly good background to support that idea. And I'm going to try and remind myself some of that while also just kind of literally just kind of talking about some of the jobs that I've had, because I've had some really interesting positions. One thing that most of my jobs where I'm working for an organization, the thing they have in common, I think actually all of them, is I got the jobs as a temporary. So I started as a temp. They hired me through an agency and then would hire me on permanently after a while. And I really liked that approach to finding jobs because I got a chance to try it out before I really committed, and could really, both the organization and I could make sure that we were a good fit for each other. So the very first job that I held out of college started in 1994. That's when I graduated college. And so if you want to come on my lap, go ahead and come on my lap, but don't just sit there and just like complain. Like a cat that I'm house sitting with, and sometimes she's quiet for hours on end, and other times she decides she has a lot to say or wants attention right now or whatever. So, uh, okay, so my first job, 1994, I was working for an engineering firm as their like office admin, and that engineering firm created a startup called Crimson Trace Corporation that was making laser sighting devices for handguns. And I was the very first official employee of Crimson Trace. And I worked for them I think I was with EPS, the engineering firm, for a couple of years. And then I transferred to Crimson Trace, which was all the same people, but it was a different company. And like I said, I was the very first employee for that startup. And I was like the office manager, general admin. It was a very small company, but I also became a salesperson. And it was actually really fun to go to these really big gun shows. It took some getting used to, let me tell you. But like my favorite it's called, it wasn't like my favorite, but it was the biggest, called the SHOT Show. And I went to the SHOT Show in Denver, and no, not Denver, Dallas, Texas. I went to the SHOT Show in Atlantic City, which is like an armpit of the universe. That would have been probably in 97 or so. And I went to the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. So I went to 3 or 4. I can't remember exactly how many, but I know I went to at least those 3. And I was a really good salesperson, and I knew the product in and out. And I spent a lot of time on the phones, working with gun dealers across the country, introducing the product to them, fulfilling orders. Sometimes they would want to talk to a man. Like that was really common, actually, where I could get the lead going, and then they always wanted to talk to a man to close it up. It was mid 90s, still very sexist in like way more than even now. Um, Anyhow, there was one time I was at the SHOT Show in Vegas, and at the time I still had really large breasts because I hadn't had my breast reduction yet. And I was wearing a dress, I was dressed cute, but there was a lot of women there that were dressed more in like very revealing clothes. And so I purposefully was wearing very modest clothes. I remember a man walking up to me and going, "Oh, I know why you're here," and just looked pointedly at my breasts. And I was, because I know the product in and out, inside and out, and because I'm really knowledgeable about what we were doing here. Um, it was And I think by the time that guy walked away, I had field stripped a Glock in front of him. I know it's dumb for me to have to like prove my worth or prove my skills, but it also sometimes felt good to be like, look, motherfucker, I'm not here just because I got boobs. I'm here because I know shit. So yeah, I field stripped that Glock. I was really fast at that point, and we had talked extensively about the laser sighting devices for handguns, and he walked away a little bit surprised, to say the least. Anyhow, that really was it was a really interesting company. It was a really interesting job, and it was a huge. Um, I had several windfalls come from that company because since I was involved at the very beginning, they gave everybody stock options that eventually they bought back from us. And so I think one time I got like a $45,000 payout for a portion of my stock. And then the other time I got like $70,000 as a payout for that stock. So even though the job itself didn't pay that great, and I left, kind of frustrated because I felt like I had been pushed out because I was a woman and not respected for my skills. I still, I got a couple of years worth of pay from them after that, basically through the buying my stocks back. So that worked out pretty good. Um, when I left Crimson Trace, I went to an organization called Robert Half International, which is a staffing agency, and they have a whole bunch of different divisions, or at least they did back then. I don't know what they do now, but they had a whole bunch of different divisions. And I started as a receptionist, and then I became like a division admin, which there's all these different divisions, and so I would support a division. I think I supported the permanent placement of accountants, like that department was Robert Half. And then I also I supported accounting, the accountants division for a while, office team, I supported them for a while. And then I became the office manager, and I basically just kept working myself up. I was promoted to area admin assistant, which meant that I was in charge of multiple offices, all of the admin staff in those offices in that area. And then I became a regional administrative coordinator, which meant I was responsible for. I was like more like the end of the line. It's not like I was, every day responsible for these things, but I helped create all of the administrative training for that whole region. I helped create the actual administrative training manual for the entire country in collaboration with some other regional administrative coordinators. And I was responsible for quite a large region, all of the admin staff in every one of those offices, the lead admin, the admin in the office would report to the lead admin, and all the lead admin reported to me. And that was actually a really fun job. I really liked that job. I got to travel to different offices quite frequently. The thing that was so crazy about Robert Half International when I started working there in June of 1997, women were literally not allowed to wear pants to work. You couldn't wear a pantsuit. It was professional dress, and so you had to wear a suit every day, and it had to be a dress suit because women couldn't wear pants. And if I was wearing, and since I was always wearing skirts, I was required to wear nylons or tights. And I remember the first time that I went to the big office in Seattle, my boss very anxiously told me I needed to hide the tattoo on my lower right leg because that wouldn't go over well with the management. So I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? That was nuts. But I was there for over 7 years, almost 8 years. I was with that organization. By the time I left, we had reasonable dress code. It actually had gotten quite a bit closer to business casual, at least for the administrative staff. And it was only the sales staff and the folks who were going on sales calls that had to wear suits. And women were allowed to wear pants at that point. But yeah, that job in particular, I got a lot of training in an extreme range of administrative skills. And I was very, very good at training the admin staff and mentoring them and guiding them along. And there's one gal in particular I worked with there. We've been friends since. We've been out of touch the past couple of years, but um, yeah, she'd always she would tell people the story of she's like, "Oh, Heather used to be my boss and she fired me and it was the best day of my life." I mean, I'm surprised I didn't say it quite like that, but it was a gift. She was happy that I fired her, even though at the time it was a difficult experience. And then we actually got to be better friends after she left the organization because I was no longer her boss and I was able to relax. And but it was good. Some of the other things that were really fun about that job is because I was just good at such a wide range of things and I'd been with the organization for so long. If there was something that no one really knew how to do, they always asked me to do it. I was just kind of a catch-all of everything. I got to organize a lot of really cool parties. I got to organize like Christmas parties and stuff with big budgets. I got to organize lots of trainings for the staff. When we moved from one building in downtown Portland to the Coin Center in downtown Portland, I got to help like the whole build out of that space. And that was quite a big project. And then there was a couple of office moves that I also organized and managed. So that was fun. And then when I left that company, my daughter had just been born. I think I went on a 3-month maternity leave and then I came back and I worked for about 6 months and I realized I wasn't going to be successful. As a working mom. I mean, my husband was staying home with our daughter and doing a good job at the time. But I actually just figured out this plan and I talked to my boss and I said, look, I'm doing all right now. I've made a couple of mistakes, but I really see that there's a high potential that I'm going to start making more mistakes. I'm going to start getting less and less happy here, which would mean that you would be less and less happy with me as well. And how about instead of going down that path, we just go ahead and part ways now, put in the paperwork so that I can get unemployment and and let's just call it a day, basically. And she said yes. Like she figured out how to do it so that even though I was technically quitting, they could they could, feel comfortable about putting in my paperwork so that I would, in fact, be able to qualify for unemployment. And that was such a benefit. It was so amazing. And I was able to get unemployment for an extended period of time after that and kind of let me get my feet under me a little bit and spend some time with my child. And I thought that was pretty genius of me. And then they actually hired me back part-time and let me decide how much that they were going to pay me and what hours I was willing to work. And that was a pretty cool project working for one of my former report tos, somebody I used to report to and come back on a special project. And so I was supporting her. And that company was the first time that I worked remotely. I was usually in an office, but rarely in the same office as my boss. I had bosses that worked in California. I had bosses that worked in Seattle. I worked for quite a few different people, and frequently it was a long distance kind of situation. So all the way back in, late 90s, early 2000s, I already was learning how to work remotely when no one else was, when that was not at all a normal thing to do. I was fought on it quite a bit, but always managed to work it out. Concurrently with Robert Half International, I also was doing a side job where I was in a network marketing company called Party Light that sold candles and home accessories and that kind of thing. And I did anywhere from like 2 to 10 candle parties a month. Working with hostesses. I hope the rain on that window is not super duper loud. Well, helping hostesses have really good parties and invite their friends and get a bunch of free stuff. And I remember there were so many times that I'd be leaving those parties and going like, oh my God, I can't believe I just made $200 for hanging out with some fun women and eating some food and talking about candles. Like it just blew my mind. I didn't always make that much money at every party, but I did fairly well. I was in leadership roles. I won several trips through that company. One to a Chicago leadership um, like seminar, and another one, a trip my husband and I got to take to Mexico with a whole group of Party Light people. That was really fun. Um, and then there was another year that I didn't win the trip, and a friend of mine and I decided to take our partners and we went on a cruise instead, instead because we couldn't go on the trip with our friends. But that was a fun company, and I worked for them for over 6 years, almost 7 years. I was a Party Light consultant on the side. I guess actually it looks like according to my resume, for 2 or 3 years, I wasn't, I was just doing Party Light. No, it overlapped with Highland Helpers. Okay, so I worked for Robert Half International from June of 97 until March of 2005. I was also a Party Light trainer and leader from 2002 to 2008. And in 2003, I started a handyman service with my ex-husband. He needed a job, and this was a really good idea to create a handyman service. And we turned it into quite a success, actually. I mean, at one point we had like 4 or 5 employees that we were keeping busy full time. We were back in the day, Angie's List. I don't know if it's still like as well respected, but back then Angie's List was very well respected. And when a service organization got what was called an Angie's List Super Service Award, it was a really big deal, and it was based on really happy customers who had put in reports or it was basically based on how happy our customers were with us, and we were Super Service Award winners for multiple years in a row. And I was really happy with a lot of things that I did with Highland Helpers. Let's see. I marketed the business through referrals from members of multiple networking organizations, social media, advertising, and by providing excellent customer service. I coordinated all scheduling of handyman services and were responsible for all HR functions and bookkeeping. So this was back in 2003 to 2009. Social media wasn't a big thing yet. Making a website was like, some businesses had websites, lots of businesses didn't. It was just really early in those years. And so most of our business was from referrals and from me going to really early morning networking events. And so I went to literally, like, for 6 years, I went to multiple networking events every week. Some of them I would be a member, some of them I would just show up as a visitor. A lot of them were very early in the morning, and I learned how to network in that environment. Basically, how do you create a elevator pitch? How do you talk about what it is that you do? How do you develop relationships with other people? I worked on that really hard for quite a few years. So I spent quite a few hours every week just on my networking skills. And that was one really good aspect of Highland Helpers. Unfortunately, as the recession that started in 2008 started to really get rolling, we really tried to hold on for a while. We thought, gosh, if we could just hold on through this downturn, there'll be so much business, because we knew a lot of small businesses small handyman services weren't going to survive. And like, we can hold on, then we will really grow as soon as the downturn starts back up again. But unfortunately, it just drug on a lot longer than we knew we had the resources for. So we ended up choosing to close the business in 2009, which was unfortunate, but it was a good company. It was good while it lasted. I'm really proud I did it. I'm really proud I did it. That was a really good experience. Starting a brand new business from scratch, going through everything, but we did it under the table for a long time, kind of at an illegal handyman service. And then we did everything we needed to do to get above board, make it legal, get all the licensing, all the insurance, everything. We became an S Corp. Like, we did all kinds of stuff. So got a lot of experience there. Also, sort of concurrently with that, so in 2008, I switched from Party Light to an organization called New Skin Enterprises. One of my good friends from Party Light and I decided to become business partners and be joined this other networking marketing company called New Skin. And we trained and mentored a team of independent consultants. We developed, composed, and designed a monthly online newsletter for our customers, as well as maintained a personal business website. And we did all kinds of crazy stuff with that. Like, we were primarily interested in this little device called a galvanic. Now I can't remember its exact name, but I know that's the first part. But it was this, I still have it and I could still use it. I just have to buy the special gels. But it's this special little device that estheticians were the only ones who had this kind of technology prior to this. But it was bringing this really cool technology to the home. Anybody could use it. And like, we would do half of somebody's face. We used to go to these, we'd buy a booth at those big shows, like the Christmas show at the Expo Center or something. So we'd have a booth and there'd be thousands of people walking by, and every once in a while someone would say, sure, I'll try it out. And we would do the treatment on half their face. And sometimes they would like look, it would look so crazy that they would get really upset. They'd be like, you have to do the other side of my face. Because it worked so well. And so sometimes, they would have lots of wrinkles and like be all funky on one side of their face. And then we'd do the other side to be all smooth and bright and, well hydrated. It would be very dramatic. It wasn't always that dramatic, but often it was. But Amy and I had a lot of fun with that company. But 2 years in, we realized it just wasn't going to pan out quite like we'd hoped. And we actually weren't as sure we wanted to be like kind of consultants representing beauty products for the rest of our lives. That just, I just couldn't get down with the makeup and all that kind of stuff. I was more into the nutrition side of the company, but I was just actually burned out on product sales by that point. I've been doing it for so long. So, we closed Highland Helpers in 2009. And by the summer of 2010, I realized I really had to get another job. Our money had run out from the Crimson Trace payout I had gotten a few years before that. That money was gone. My husband couldn't get a job. Like, something had to be done. We didn't have insurance. We hadn't had insurance for a couple of years. So it was time to do something about that. So I went back to the temp agency and got signed up and did some random jobs and eventually landed a job at the University of Oregon here in Portland. And that first role was as an executive assistant. I was supporting the assistant vice president for Portland advancement. That's where I learned how to manage extraordinarily busy calendars, how to become a ninja at finding a time when all the busiest people in town could all get together. Like, somehow, and part of that was because I've had really good relationships with the executive assistants of lots of the most powerful people in Portland, because I was frequently calling them together for meetings. And sometime even the president's office of the University of Oregon would ask for my help in getting meetings with certain people who were really difficult to get meetings with. Because I was friends with their executive assistant, and I knew how to get stuff done. And if you ever really want to know who's in charge, it's at a company, it's usually the executive assistant, because they're the ones who decide who gets through to their boss and who doesn't. I maintained that department's budget, and I got to help that department with planning and executing a variety of cool special events and sponsorships. And I was also the one that would usually be tapped to provide administrative support to the president of the university when he would be in Portland. He had a special office in our Portland building. And I think I was at that desk to receive the governor, before Brown. Oh gosh, I can see his face right now, but I can't remember his name right now. Dang it. Anyway, I got to meet the governor when he came to meet the president of the university, and that was pretty cool. But I was mad because he was coming to the building on April Fool's Day. That's right. He was coming on April Fool's Day, and I got in trouble for trying to play April Fool's jokes. I was like, the governor's not going to see what I'm doing, but anyway. That was a fun company. That was a fun job. I did that from August 2010 until June of 2014, when I in July of 2014, I assumed the position of Portland Program Manager for the UO Alumni Association. It was a long road getting to that job. It started because I called the vice president of advancement of the university. I had a really good relationship with him because I also supported him when he would come to Portland, and I was really close with his assistant also. But I called him and said, look, things are going really badly with my direct supervisor. I can't work for her anymore. And there's nothing here at the university for me. Would you give me a reference for this position that I'm applying for at PSU? It was, and there was no, like the PSU position was for a completely different department. It was just basically just to get me out of the position I was in because my boss was a total butthead. But the vice president didn't like that idea. He was like, well, if you really have to leave, I will give you a reference happily. I would very much want to support you in anything you want to do. However, I've had an idea for a while now that I hadn't had a chance to talk with you about. And, if I, can you give me a little bit of time? And if I come up with a offer that works for you, would you be willing to consider staying? And of course, I was very honored that he said all that. And there's a good chance, actually, that he was kind of snowing me, that he hadn't had an idea already, but that my call was sort of an inspiration to get started on an idea. And what eventually came about is the creation of the Portland Program Manager for the Alumni Association. And so even though the position was specifically created because I had said I was leaving if I didn't get something else. So it was kind of created for me. It was based on my skill set. I got to help organize. I got to help decide the office as the office was getting built out because a special office was going to be created for me or for that position. I got to help design it, and it was kind of on the down low because I wasn't supposed to be part of that project, but they were so sure I was going to get the job that I got to be a part of the project. But it took like 9-10 months or something before the interview process actually started. And it was an extremely competitive interview process. There were so many people interested in that job, and other people who might even have been better qualified than me, but were from outside of the organization. It definitely helped that I had already been working for the U of O in a related department for 4 years. But man, the final interview, I had to go to Eugene and give a presentation to 13 people, the entire Alumni Association department. I had to give a presentation about what my plans were for the Portland Program Manager role and what some of the projects that I intended to bring to the table. And it was so stressful. And it happened to be literally the exact same time frame that my husband had just told me he was leaving me. I think he told me he was leaving me like the second week of April of 2014, and the third week of April 2014 is when I had to go to Eugene for that really important interview. So to say the least, I was a mess. I was really stressed, but having a new job to apply for really kept my attention and helped me stay on track and not just completely lose my mind as my husband proceeded to leave me. That job started in July of 2014. It took quite some time to even find out if I got it. So I was like waiting and waiting and waiting. It was painful. But it was the best job I've ever had. I loved it so much. I really wish I could have done it for more than 2 years. I got to do so many cool things. I got to be the duck handler a bunch of times. My ex-husband got to be a secret duck. Like he got specially trained by the duck handler down in Eugene and got special permission to wear the duck suit. But the thing is, he's a lot taller than most ducks. So for a little while there was a 7-foot tall duck in Portland every now and then, and that confused fans sometimes because he's only supposed to be like 6 feet tall. And yeah, you put a 6'3" tall man inside the duck suit, he gets over 7 feet tall. But that was one of my favorite parts, though, was being the duck handler, whether my husband was in the suit or one of the former ducks was in the suit. It was so fun. The pinnacle being the day the duck got knighted by the Queen of Rosaria for the Rose Festival. Just practically have tears thinking about it every time. Um, but yeah, I got to be a big part of the University of Oregon's presence in the TEDx Portland activities, in the Grand Floral Parade. We had a huge section, and I was always organizing the volunteers and the whole like project. We had amazing watch parties for football. We had amazing watch parties for the parade. I did a bunch of science nights, which were like a pub night, and I'd bring up one of the professors from campus. I'd have to work with multiple departments to make this happen. Yeah, we'd go to a pub and have this really cool presentation by one of our professors, and everybody would get some food and some beer, and just like it was really fun. That was a really great activity. I also was in charge of the Alumni Association volunteer group. So like there would be a board of volunteers, and I managed that group and kept them on track and helped them do, actually accomplish stuff. And I also helped start the Alumni Association board for the Oregon business school in Portland. What was that called? Anyway, getting that alumni association started going too. So I did a lot in those couple of years, literally hundreds of events, networking events, happy hours, the many watch parties. We started a watch party out at the theater out in Beaverton so that a couple hundred people could come every time. That was fun too. Anyway. That was a really good job. What did I say? So I said I served as the primary representative for the UO Alumni Association membership services in Portland. I recruited new members and built strong relationships with UO alumni and friends of the university. I also recruited, trained, and supported Portland area alumni as volunteers with the Portland area alumni chapter and other alumni programs, as well as provided support for the chapter board, their events and programs. And I had a beautiful office, really beautiful office that eventually became a conference room or something when I left. So I left there in August of 2016 to go on medical leave, and I totally fully thought I was coming back, but I never made it back. And in March of 2017, or May of 2017, they gave me what was considered a medical release, meaning that if I wanted to apply for another job, I totally could. Nothing would be held against me. It's not like I got fired. It was just, we can't hold your job for you any longer kind of thing. That was a bummer. And I did actually reapply when they reopened the position, like, I don't know, 6 months later or something, but wasn't considered for the role at that time. So somewhere in late 2016, I started rideshare driving here and there. It's not on my resume, but maybe at some point I'll put it on there because I actually did learn an awful lot from that experience. I'm still a rideshare driver, still been doing that. So anywhere from a few hours a week to 40 hours a week since 2016, I have been doing rideshare driving. I did take most of 2019 off from rideshare because I was the co-creator at an organization called Radical Pleasurist. It was a coaching business, and worked with a coach who had, kind of started Radical Pleasurist. She knew that she probably wasn't gonna get where she wanted to go on her own, and she invited me to be her business partner, and we spent that year creating courses and building that business and being really visible in the community. And we created the Everybody Show, which is pretty funny, actually. We did some fun stuff on the Everybody Show, made a ton of videos for our YouTube channel, did a ton of writing. I learned how to write blog posts. I learned how to basically do that kind of business. We even were accepted into a program that was like a specifically for small businesses run by women, and got quite a bit of good training, both she and I, through that through that special program, and it was quite an honor to be chosen. Unfortunately, though, by the end of the year in 2019, we'd realized that things weren't going to work out for us as we'd hoped, and we decided to end that partnership. And yeah, that was a really good learning experience. But it's the way we did that business is not a way that I intend to ever do my business in the future, because it was, I don't know, it's just not what, it wasn't as authentic to me as I feel like I would want to do now. Also on the side, from November of 2016 to, I haven't really stopped doing it, but I don't have any current virtual assistant clients now. I was also doing virtual assistant support of several businesses. I started that, like I said, November 2016. And I worked with a graphic designer, and I helped her company. It helped kind of set up all of her administrative processes so that when I left, eventually she would be able to, pretty easily put another admin in that role. Unfortunately, I ended up leaving really abruptly in March of 2020 when the pandemic shut everything down. And since almost all of her business was based in the California tourist industry, she had to let me go right away, because she saw the writing on the wall. She's like, there's no way I'm going to stay afloat with the tourist industry going into flames like this. So she had to let me go. And but that I had been doing that job for like 3 or 4 years. It was really cool. I also supported Greg Bell, an author and speaker, and had a really fun time working for him. There's a therapist I worked for a while. I supported her office. There was another therapist I worked for about a year. So yeah, wide range of small businesses that I supported as a virtual executive assistant or event planner or office manager, like kind of whatever they needed, I could do. And some of the specific things I did were event and travel planning, project management, social media management, calendar and schedule management, research and data gathering, some bookkeeping, just a little bit, organizing their office. And I also helped one of my clients identify and do the whole hiring process. And I managed the hiring process with her to hire an assistant graphic designer for her business. So that was pretty fun. And it really helped her a lot for me to be able to do that. But especially back at Robert Half International, I had tons of experience hiring, firing, interviewing, identifying good candidates. Even at the University of Oregon, I actually got to be on lots of hiring committees. So I had lots of experience in that area. So this brings us to more currently. In March of 2020, I believed that I was going to be creating a coaching business. I have changed my mind about that. I don't intend to be kind of a traditional coach. But back then, what I wrote for that was that I have wildly varied experiences that I've synthesized into a new perspective to support my clients. These include a wide range of holistic health and healing modalities, somatic experiencing, project management, platonic touch, transformational communication, and radical acceptance of the moment. I help people rediscover how to fully experience their next level life, one breath, one moment, one choice at a time. So that's actually probably only needs to be edited just a little bit. Like I don't want to use the word coach. Like I said, I might change that to guide, instigator, catalyst, something like that. And over the past couple of years, I have developed a program I call Catalyst Calls that I intend to implement soon. And that's like a short-term commitment of a month with a group of 4 to 5 people who all have a specific goal in mind that they are going to accomplish within that month. And we meet once a week and kind of help support them, make sure that they actually make progress on whatever their goal was, whether it be implementing a new habit routine, a new morning routine, That's one that I'd really like to work with people on, kind of getting their schedule in place so that they can actually be effective in their lives. Someone else working with me launched their Patreon. Someone else, I mean, so there's a wide range of things that could be the skill that people work on their catalyst calls. But yeah. But so all of this experience, did I miss anything? I'm sure. Yeah, there were other side jobs that we did. Like my ex-husband and I were illegal car dealers for a while. We sold so many cars that we could have gotten in trouble if we'd gotten caught, but we didn't. There's been so many things that I've done to make money on the side, whether it be for a little while or a lot. But I'm excited to bring together that I'm kind of bringing together these ideas to create a staffing agency that will be the admins themselves will all be pretty beginner in their career. I really want to work particularly with young people, partly because they don't already have a lot of bad habits that they've learned in the business environment, and will just like listen to what I say rather than say, well, I've done it this way before, and won't fight me on it. They'll just be like, this is new to me. Tell me what you want me to do. I find that to be easier to train a brand new person rather than have to overcome how somebody else has been trained in the past. So yeah, hiring really beginner level of admin that I can train to do some very specific tasks. Like one in particular is how to manage the back end of YouTube, so that if because I imagine a lot of our clients will be small content creators on YouTube, and one of the big barriers to people doing as much YouTube as they want is kind of the back end stuff. So that's one of the things I will teach my admin staff to do. I have so many ideas on what I'm going to do with my staffing agency, and this isn't where I wanted to get in on that, but I have been reviewing my resume for almost 45 minutes. That feels like plenty. And now I look forward to kind of letting this sort of settle with me for a little bit. Let me kind of let it land as I remember all of these amazing jobs that I've held and skills that I've learned, and different ways that I've been involved professionally. So, yeah. Okay, well, if anyone ever sees this, thanks for being on the receiving end. I hope you found it interesting. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I put my my link in the description. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I, at some point, will get more busy on there and actually respond to stuff. So yeah. And maybe this will help me remember some of the other random jobs I didn't put on here. Anyway, thank you for being on the receiving end. Like I said, and have a good day. Bye-bye.